We rarely notice the quiet missteps, the small choices, habits, and reactions that slowly carve the shape of our lives. They slip in like background noise, harmless at first glance, yet over time they gather weight and direction. Folktales from every culture warn us about this. The fisherman who ignores a tiny tear in his net, the traveler who dismisses a faint storm on the horizon, the elder who says, "A seed doesn't look dangerous until the tree grows." As a psychology professor, I've watched these subtle patterns unfold in real people, ordinary individuals whose later regrets were never born from a single catastrophe, but from small choices repeated for years. This is the world we're about to step into. Stoic philosophy, with its calm yet piercing wisdom, understood this long before modern psychology gave it language. The Stoics saw human behavior as a tapestry woven from countless everyday decisions. They spoke of inner discipline, emotional clarity, and the slow training of the mind, not as an abstract ideal, but as a daily practice. Seneca reminded his students, "Life is long if you know how to use it," urging them to pay attention to how each day is spent. The Stoics weren't obsessed with grand moral failures. They were fascinated by the little fractures in character that, left unchecked, reshape a destiny. Their insights give us a powerful framework to examine why seemingly minor actions can echo so loudly later in life. So we arrive at the heart of the discussion. If these small missteps can grow into the regrets that define us, regrets we never meant to create, then what exactly are these mistakes? Which subtle patterns, unnoticed in the moment, can bend the arc of a life? And perhaps the most important question, how can Stoic wisdom help us recognize them before it's too late? Before we dive deeper into these hidden patterns of regret and the Stoic wisdom behind them, take a moment to anchor yourself in this journey. If the ideas in the introduction stirred something in you, maybe a familiar story, a memory, or even a quiet realization, then let your voice shape the conversation. Subscribe so you won't miss the next steps, like the video to help it travel to those who might need it, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us which part of the Stoic view resonated with you, or which small crossroads in your own life suddenly feels clearer. Your interaction isn't just support. It's how this community grows into a place where reflection becomes strength and insight becomes change. Case 1. Avoiding conflict. There is a quiet moment in every life when a person steps away from an argument, not out of wisdom, but out of fear. We often tell ourselves we're keeping the peace, yet the peace we're protecting is usually external, thin as paper, while inside we fold resentment again and again until it becomes something sharp. I've seen this pattern in students, colleagues, even in elders who whisper regrets they never voiced when it mattered. In psychology, we call this avoidance a defense. But long before modern terms existed, the Stoics understood that dodging necessary conflict is not calmness. It's a slow erosion of the self. As Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid, meaning, you must sometimes step into discomfort to live honestly. One folktale from the Middle East tells of a merchant who avoided confronting his apprentice for repeated mistakes. Each day he told himself, "Tomorrow I will speak." But the mistakes became habits, and the habits became losses until the business collapsed. The lesson echoes a Stoic insight. Small acts of silence can become large acts of surrender. Seneca believed that courage isn't only for battles or storms. It's for the living room conversations, the workplace tensions, the emotional truths we postpone. Addressing conflict isn't aggression. It's stewardship of our relationships and our inner stability. Avoidance also twists the mind in subtle ways. We begin rewriting stories to protect ourselves. It's not worth it. It will blow over. They should already know. The Stoics would call this a distortion of judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "To see things as they are is the task of a lifetime," a reminder that honesty begins long before words are spoken. The moment we avoid clarity, we gamble with misunderstanding. And misunderstandings, like unattended sparks, have a talent for turning into fires that burn far beyond their origins. So the question becomes inescapable. If avoiding conflict is one of these small mistakes that grows into a lifelong regret, how do we recognize the line between peacekeeping and self-betrayal? And when that line finally appears thin, trembling, undeniable, what practices, insights, or acts of courage can help us step forward instead of stepping back? Case 2. Seeking help in Stoic philosophy. There is a quiet tragedy I see often as a psychology professor: people who wait too long to ask for help. Not because help isn't available, but because seeking it feels like admitting weakness. Many suffer silently, convincing themselves that their questions are burdens, their fears are private battles, and their confusion is something time will magically untangle. Yet most regrets are not born from the moments we reached out. They're born from the moments we stayed silent. The Stoics understood this tension deeply. They believed that wisdom begins with recognizing what we do not know. As Seneca said, "If you would learn, you must first unlearn your pride." One folktale tells of a village carpenter who refused to ask how to properly sharpen a blade. For years, he blamed the wood, the weather, even the tools, everything except his own hesitation to seek guidance. Only when his apprentice shattered a board in frustration did he finally ask the blacksmith, who solved the problem in minutes. This story echoes a Stoic principle. Neglecting to seek help is not independence. It's a form of stubbornness that narrows our world. When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Learn to be helped," he wasn't teaching dependency. He was teaching humility, collaboration, and the courage to admit we are still students. Stoic philosophy saw human beings as interconnected threads in the same fabric. Seeking help, therefore, was never a sign of fragility, but an act of reason. Epictetus advised his students to place themselves near teachers, mentors, and wise companions, not because they were incapable, but because the mind grows better in good company. Psychology today mirrors this idea. Isolation amplifies distress, while even a single supportive voice can redirect a life. When we reach out, whether to a friend, a counselor, or a teacher, we interrupt the cycle of silent suffering that so often blossoms into regret. So, the real question arises: if failing to seek help is one of the small mistakes that evolves into a lifelong burden, what stops us from reaching out? And more importantly, what inner shifts, what softer, humbler, more honest habits can guide us back toward connection before the regret grows too heavy to carry? Case 3. Maintaining relationships. There is a moment in every relationship when we assume the bond will take care of itself, that the friend who always listens will keep listening, the sibling who forgives will keep forgiving, the partner who understands will automatically understand again. In psychology, we call this emotional inertia, the belief that closeness is permanent, but time, like water, reshapes everything it touches. The Stoics knew that relationships needed tending, not because people are fragile, but because affection fades when it isn't nourished. Seneca often wrote letters to friends not out of obligation, but out of deliberate practice. "We should meet the kindness of others with gratitude," he said, meaning, what survives is what we maintain. A folk story from Greece tells of two shepherds who shared land, food, and years of peace. One winter, a small misunderstanding arose. Instead of speaking, each waited for the other to fix it. They passed each other daily, saying nothing, until silence replaced friendship. Years later, one confessed, "I was waiting for you to come first." The other replied, "So was I." Their tale mirrors a Stoic teaching. Neglect is not neutral. It is a quiet action with loud consequences. Marcus Aurelius advised his generals to repair the bond before it tears, reminding them that early mending is easier than late regret. We often imagine relationship maintenance as grand gestures, but the Stoics saw it differently. They emphasize steady presence, honest communication, and small acts of goodwill. These acts, checking in, expressing gratitude, apologizing before pride, hardens, shape the emotional environment we live in. Epictetus taught his students to practice kindness like a craft, treating it as a skill that strengthens with repetition. Modern psychology agrees. Micro-connections, not dramatic reconciliations, sustain lasting relationships. So the essential question emerges. If neglecting relationships is one of the small mistakes that quietly grows into lifelong regret, then what daily habits and what small intentional acts can prevent the distance we never meant to create? Case 4. Procrastination. There is a haunting moment familiar to almost everyone, the quiet pause where we tell ourselves, "I'll do it later." It feels harmless, even logical. A tiny delay in a long day. But the Stoics understood that time has a strange way of punishing hesitation. As a psychology professor, I've seen students, professionals, even older adults describe the same regret years later. Not a single catastrophic choice, but thousands of postponed ones. Procrastination is rarely dramatic. It's the soft, invisible drift that pulls us away from the life we meant to live. Seneca captured this with chilling simplicity. While we are postponing, life speeds by. There's a folktale from Persia about a gardener who refused to plant a particular tree because the fruit took 20 years to mature. Every spring, he said, "Next year, when I have more time." But 20 years passed anyway. When he finally returned with a sapling, he whispered, "If only I had begun when I first decided." The tale reflects a key Stoic insight. Time moves whether we choose to move with it or not. Marcus Aurelius didn't warn about external threats. He warned about internal delays. For him, procrastination was a fracture in our relationship with time itself. Modern psychology echoes this. Procrastination isn't laziness, it's emotional avoidance, and the Stoics understood emotion well. They taught that hesitation grows when we exaggerate discomfort, imagining a task as heavier than it truly is. Epictetus urged his students to approach tasks as a farmer approaches dawn, not because dawn is easy, but because it is inevitable. This perspective reframes action as something natural, not heroic. The Stoics believed that the small courage of beginning is more powerful than any burst of inspiration. So, the essential question reveals itself. If procrastination is one of those quiet mistakes that grows into a lifetime of what-ifs, then what practices, mindsets, or daily rituals can help us rise from hesitation into motion before the days we keep postponing become the years we can no longer reclaim? Case 5. Organizing important documents. There is a strange irony in human behavior. We prepare for major life events with great seriousness, yet overlook the small practical tasks that hold those events together. One of the most common and costly examples is failing to organize important documents. As a psychology professor, I've seen how this minor oversight becomes a major emotional burden. Families searching through boxes for medical records, students losing opportunities because a form was misplaced, adults left scrambling during emergencies. The Stoics often spoke of preparedness, not as paranoia, but as wisdom. Seneca wrote, "The time to prepare is before it is needed," a reminder that readiness is a quiet form of strength. A folktale from Japan captures this beautifully. It tells of a fisherman who kept his tools in perfect order except for one, a small chart showing the safe routes home during storms. "I know these waters well," he told himself. One night a fog rolled in, and he realized he could not remember which rocks lay beneath the surface. The chart was buried somewhere in his house, but without it, he was lost at sea. This story mirrors a Stoic lesson. We often ignore the essential because its usefulness lies in the future, not the present. But the future has a way of arriving early and suddenly. Stoic philosophy views organization as a discipline of clarity. Marcus Aurelius believed that an orderly external life supports an orderly internal one. When our documents are scattered, our minds become scattered with them. Psychology backs this up. Clutter increases stress, and unclear systems breed avoidance. Epictetus urged his students to set things where they belong, not to impress others, but to protect themselves from unnecessary chaos. Order is not about perfection. It is about creating a foundation that frees us to focus on what truly matters. So the question becomes pressing. If neglecting our essential documents is one of those small mistakes that can explode into overwhelming regret, what simple habits, systems, or daily rituals can keep us prepared for life's unexpected storms before they arrive? Case 6. Personal hobbies. One of the quietest forms of self-neglect is abandoning the hobbies that once brought us joy. As a psychology professor, I've heard countless people confess this same regret in later years. The piano they stopped playing, the sketches left unfinished, the garden that never grew again. These aren't meaningless pastimes. They are psychological oxygen. When we silence our personal interests, we slowly lose pieces of ourselves. The Stoics understood this more deeply than we often assume. They believed that nurturing the self wasn't selfish. It was a way to maintain inner balance. Seneca warned, the mind must be allowed relaxation, recognizing that joy is not a luxury, but a stabilizing force in a turbulent world. A folk story from Scandinavia tells of a blacksmith who loved carving wooden toys. It was the one activity that softened his hardened hands and hardened days. Over time, he stopped, telling himself he was too busy and that play was for children. His temper grew shorter, his sleep grew thinner, and his work grew worse. One evening, an old friend asked, "When did you stop doing the thing that made you feel human?" The blacksmith had no answer. This simple tale mirrors a Stoic belief. Activities that refresh the soul protect us from bitterness and exhaustion. The Stoics taught moderation not only in avoiding excess, but also in keeping a healthy rhythm of work and leisure. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to return to what nourishes the spirit, treating replenishment as a responsibility, not an indulgence. Modern psychology says the same. Hobbies reduce stress, increase resilience, and strengthen identity. When we abandon them, we don't gain time, we lose depth. So, the question arises, if neglecting our personal hobbies quietly drains our emotional vitality and leaves us facing long-term regret, what small rituals, boundaries, or daily sparks of creativity can help us reclaim the parts of ourselves we've unintentionally set aside? Case 7. Health awareness. There is a moment in every life when the body whispers, and we pretend not to hear it. A slight ache, a skipped meal, a night of poor sleep, tiny signals we dismiss with, "It's nothing." As a psychology professor, I've learned that people often ignore these early warnings, not because they're careless, but because they believe their body will endlessly tolerate neglect. Yet the Stoics warned against this illusion long ago. They believed the body was a companion, not a machine, one that demands partnership and awareness. Seneca once wrote, "The body should be treated with more care than it demands," a line that feels cinematic when you realize how rarely we follow it. There is an old folk tale from Anatolia about a traveler who refused to fix the loose strap on his sandal. "It still holds," he said each morning. But each day the strap grew weaker, until one afternoon, miles from home, it snapped and sent him tumbling down a rocky path. When he finally limped back to the village, an elder told him, "A small repair earlier would have saved you all this pain." The story is simple, but its meaning is sharp. Small neglects create large suffering. The Stoics understood this pattern. Minor neglect becomes major consequence. Stoic philosophy saw health not as vanity or survival, but as a foundation for clarity of mind. Epictetus taught that caring for the body supports clarity, discipline, and emotional steadiness. They viewed health awareness as an act of responsibility toward oneself and those we love. Modern psychology mirrors this. Unchecked fatigue leads to irritability. Ignored symptoms become chronic problems, and emotional health collapses when physical needs are denied. Our body keeps the receipts of every shortcut we take. So the unsettling question emerges. If overlooking our health is one of those small mistakes that grows into overwhelming regret, then what simple habits, daily attentiveness, or quiet acts of respect toward the body can protect us before we cross the line where later becomes too late? Case 8. Emergency planning. There is a particular kind of regret that comes only in moments of crisis, the regret of wishing you had prepared sooner. As a psychology professor, I've seen people describe emergencies not only with fear, but with self-blame. Why didn't I have a plan? Why didn't I check that earlier? Emergencies reveal the quiet cracks in our daily routines. The Stoics often reflected on this, not from a place of paranoia, but from a deep understanding of life's unpredictability. Seneca wrote, "The unexpected happens to every man, and no man should be surprised by it," reminding us that planning ahead is not pessimism, it is wisdom in action. A folktale from North Africa tells of a family who lived near a river known for rare but violent floods. Each year, the village elders warned them to move their belongings to higher shelves, prepare escape routes, and secure important items. "We've lived here for decades," the family replied. "Nothing will happen." One night, the river rose silently, and by morning their home was gone. When the villagers helped them rebuild, an elder said, "Water is not dangerous because it comes often. It is dangerous because it comes suddenly." The story echoes a Stoic idea. We prepare not for probability, but for possibility. Stoic philosophy taught readiness as a moral discipline. Marcus Aurelius often wrote notes to himself about imagining various outcomes, not to frighten himself, but to strengthen clarity and resilience. They believed that preparation sharpens the mind, reduces panic, and protects those we care about. Modern psychology supports this. In emergencies, people who have even a basic plan respond faster, think more clearly, and experience less long-term stress. Planning is not about expecting disaster. It is about reducing suffering when it comes. So the real question emerges. If avoiding emergency planning is one of the small mistakes that eventually becomes a major regret, what small, practical steps can we take now before life's unexpected moments demand answers we haven't prepared for? If you've stayed with me all the way to the end of this journey, then you're already doing something rare. You're paying attention to the quiet places where life actually changes. The Stoics believed that transformation doesn't happen in grand moments, but in the small, private recognitions we whisper only to ourselves. Maybe one of these sections reminded you of a habit you've ignored, a relationship you want to protect, a health signal you've been postponing, or a plan you've avoided making. If so, take that as a sign of strength, not failure. Growth begins exactly here, in the decision to notice. So I invite you to hold on to whatever insight surfaced for you. Carry it into tomorrow. Let it reshape one's